I didn't wake up one day and say, I have a drinking problem. I woke up 100 times telling myself I didn't. Until one morning, I woke up in jail again. And the only question I had was, how did I get here?
This is the story of my dad. I watched him fall, and I watched him fight his way back through the fire. Not for the fame, not for attention, for his family, for his music, for the life he rebuilt. Still sober, still loud, still standing. Welcome to Louder Than My Demons. Season 2 begins now.
I smell your blood so sweet and hot. It won't be long till I'm with you. I can feel it, almost taste it.
There's a version of having a problem that nobody really warns you about because it doesn't look like a problem. It doesn't look like rock bottom. It doesn't look like chaos, even if it feels like it. It doesn't look like someone who's lost everything. It looks like functioning. It looks like someone who still shows up, still works, still laughs, and still has relationships, even if they're fucked up. It looks like someone who can point to their life and say, see, I'm good. And that's where I lived for a long fucking time. Not out of control, although sometimes I was. Not completely broken, although I felt like it at times. Just not honest. Because I wasn't asking the right question. I wasn't asking, is this destroying me? Is this destroying my life? I was asking, is this as bad as that guy? I'm not as bad as him, right? And that's a trap. And we all fall into it because there's always someone worse. There's always someone drinking more, always someone losing more, always someone further gone than us. So you measure yourself against that and you pass the test, but it's the wrong test because the real question isn't, am I the worst? It's, is this making me better or worse? And if I'm being honest, it was making me worse. And if you know me, you know that was true. Not all at once, not in some dramatic collapse, although that's what happened, but slowly. In the decisions I made, in the things I ignored, in the boundaries I let slip with the people that were in my life. And that's how it works. It doesn't always destroy you in one moment. Sometimes it just erodes you. And the hardest part about that is you can live in it for years, like I did, convincing yourself you're fine because nothing has completely fallen apart yet. And I think that's where a lot of us live. Not broken completely, not desperate all the time, just comfortable enough to keep going. But deep down in our gut, you know something's off. You know something isn't right. You know people are taking advantage of you or that you're taking advantage of people. You just don't want to call it what it is because the moment you do, you have to change. And that's where this episode lives. Not at the bottom, not at the breakthrough, but in that space right before it, where you still have a choice. Okay, so welcome to The Reckoning in episode 17, season 2, episode 2. Today, I'm going to talk about my gratitude first, like I like to do each week. And this week, I am grateful I had a great, wonderful weekend with my friends and family. And I can never say how grateful and thankful I am when I get to spend time with my daughter, with my son, with my friends, Joe, who was over here for her birthday party. She turned 9 this year. Beautiful girl, smart, funny, loving. Sometimes she's a little too smart for her britches. She forgets she's only 9 and not 13, 14, 15, or 33. But I am just grateful that she wants to come and spend time with me. She asked me, this past month if she could come stay the whole summer with me, and I said no, we can't do that. You've got too much stuff going on with with you and Mom and with your sister and with everybody. They'd miss you, and they wouldn't be able to get along without you, and you'd miss them. And but I said, well, maybe Mommy will let you come stay a week, and this time last year I didn't have a podcast, and so you guys didn't know what was going on. But this time last year I got to see her about 3 times up to this time. We got to spend some time with her on her birthday, and I got chewed out on that because I said asked some questions and stuff like that. But we're in a way different situation now. Her mom and I are in a way better place than we were and than we have been in a long time, and that's pretty awesome. And her mom said, yeah, she could come spend a week with us. So we're going to figure that out and maybe go see Grammy in Maryland and get some good family bonding together. Her and I get along great, but she loves her brother. And he pulled up to see us this past weekend, and she was at the door just like Edie, waiting for him to come in, and she got so excited, and it's so cool. And he got her some really cool birthday presents, and I got her a couple cool birthday presents, and she just had a good birthday, not spoiled. A lot of kids get so many things that they never get to play with them, and she's been like that here in the past, where I've gotten so much stuff for her that she never gets to play it because she doesn't take it home. She wants to leave it here. And then, when she comes back, she wants to do something else. So there's a lot of toys in there that have not been touched, and we'll donate those at some point. But it's hard because I know how much time, effort, and money was spent on some of that stuff. But she's not spoiled recently. Christmas and this birthday has been, hey, what do you want? What's the one big thing you want? Okay, cool. And then we get that. And she doesn't need a whole bunch of other stuff. And she's also asked for a lot of little silly stuff. She likes to play little silly games and with little dolls and little stuffies. She loves stuffies. So she's asked for a lot of that kind of stuff. I got her an old school MP3 player, like an iPod. It has a screen and you can dial and do all that stuff on it. And you can load 180 some gigabytes of songs on there. So we're going to load that up for her in the next week or two. She told me she wants the toe tapping stuff, which she describes as the Taylor Swift and all the pop stuff that little girls like. She wants some country. Her and her mom like to listen to country. And then, of course, she wants Ozzy and Zeppelin and Guns N' Roses and Walking Papers and all the stuff we like. She wanted to call Jeff Angell about something the other day. She said, what if I just call him? Maybe. I said, well, I don't know how we would call him. But she just, she doesn't always understand things. She's awesome. And my son was great. And, he's very caring. And he's always checking on me. And he came over to play drums the other day. And it was a good feeling. It's a good feeling to have him around and to have Joe here. Gives me somebody to talk to when I feel like I need to, or when he feels like he needs to. It's been a good thing having him around. And the band's on fire, and Glam City is looking for a singer, Jen, was sick, and she's not going to be able to do both bands, her old band and then the new band right now. So we found a couple guys. We just held some auditions. You'd be amazed at what they expect. You know, when Colton was trying out for a band, I told him, do 3 things. Show up on time, don't be a dick, and know your stuff. If they tell you to learn 5 songs, learn those 5 songs. And if there's more songs on the CD they give you or whatever they give you, learn those songs too. We had auditions and most of the guys showed up. I was pretty impressed the first night, especially. They showed up. They did well. They knew the songs. One of the nights, the guy was sick, so I understood that. We're not going to hold that against him. We told him we'd give him another shot at it. A couple guys thought they shouldn't have to audition. The old, I've got records and I've got this and I don't need to audition. Well, I've got records and it's my band and I want to make sure I get the right guy, because this isn't just about talent. While we do want somebody that can sing the 80s stuff, we want somebody that fits in with us like Jen did. And, we think we found somebody that we're going to work with a little bit on that and see where it goes. But I'm excited to get that band going. It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool. And the boys, I'll tell you, I'm very proud of them. They have put serious work in. Mike and Eric and Joe all showed up knowing all 5 of those songs for audition. And every one of the singers said, wow, you guys are good. Because we are. We all care about this. We already have a vibe from the Corruption, which is getting even stronger tonight. We're playing Saturday the 9th, which would be tomorrow after this comes up. We're playing in Youngstown at the West Side Bowl with a band called Great Whitesnake. And that's exactly what they are. They are a tribute to Great White and Whitesnake. And I thought, man, it'd be cool to do something that fits in with what they're doing. And obviously we can't play Great White and we can't play Whitesnake. And I'm not really capable of singing all that stuff anyhow, or at least singing it well. But I found a Coverdale Page song that I thought we could do cool and make a Corruption. And it's a slinky, slidey Jimmy Page riff. And we turned it into almost a Corruption outlaw punk song. We changed some of the drums. We changed some of the guitar. The vocals, definitely. I'm not able to do that David Coverdale stuff. Not at least do it decent. So we fit it. We played it down in a D. And we found tonight what happens when you play Jimmy Page or Led Zeppelin in D, because we were also working on The Ocean. We're going to play the intro to The Ocean going into this song. And we were doing that, and Eric hit a wrong note that was like super cool and super fun. And I'm like, what, do that again. And he goes, I don't know what I did. And then we found it, and it turns out it was a Sabbath song. And he goes, well, here's what happens when you play Led Zeppelin in D, is you get Black Sabbath. And we goofed around with that for a little bit, but it was fun. We spent 2 hours not even paying attention to the clock, not even worrying about anything, just going over. First, we learned The Ocean, the intro to The Ocean. That riff that goes do 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 do. So we learned that, tightened it up, figured out exactly how we're going to do it as an intro to the Coverdale Page. Then we tore the Coverdale Page song apart. We cut out a verse. We cut out a third chorus. We changed a little thing where they don't even have it as a chorus. We made a second chorus, kind of. And it came out really cool. And there's some vocal harmonies on the bridge. And I told the guys, and they all laughed at me, and it came out weird, but I said, our voices go together naturally, like the Beatles. And everybody looked at me, and Eric said, yeah, that's what everybody thinks of when they hear the Corruption is the Beatles. And I said, no, what I mean is the Beatles weren't really singing harmonies as much as their voices were a natural harmony of each other. And that's kind of where we are when we do gang vocals, or like on Heartache, when we sing some of that. Hey, 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 hey. Our voices go together and fill out a rich, strong backing vocal section together, without having to say, Joe, you go high, I'll go low, any of that kind of stuff. We just sing in our voice, and it has those layers there. Yeah, we could dig in, and in the studio on some of that we will, but we don't have to do it live. We kind of just naturally do that. But anyhow, I'm going on, but I'm very grateful for my band lately. We are as good as we've ever been, better than we've ever been. MB used to work at a place where he worked with chrome, and I am a strong believer that he had mercury poisoning and that they were killing him there, because he doesn't work there anymore, and he's not the same person since that's over. He is articulate, quick, smart, funny, caring, man. One of my favorite people in the world. And before, when he was on that job, and it was killing him, I always thought he was high, and he wasn't. It's the mercury was doing it to him. And now he's been off of that job all year, and his drum playing is 10 times better than it was, and it was good before. And now it's like, phew, this is the what we want. He's got that Bonham swagger and that heavy hand, and he can play that stuff, man. And sometimes he digs in a little deep, and sometimes he overthinks stuff. But when he's playing right, he's playing as good as anybody around. And the band is just really good right now. Eric and I have our tones dialed in to where they go together really well. They fill out each other. Amazing. It's awesome. The Corruption and soon to be Glam City are it's fun to be in those bands. I love it. And I'm grateful for that. I am grateful for working with Curran and getting the opportunities I'm getting. I got some things coming up that could be pretty cool. I almost got to go to Europe. It was a little too late. We were talking to the probation officer and stuff, but it was just a little too late. And then, they found somebody over in Europe that they could use as a tech and tour manager and all that kind of stuff. But all that kind of stuff is potential for me in the future. I got things happening. I'm learning the studio. I want to start recording bands over there. I want to do demos for bands. I want to help younger bands get their music together professionally and get it out cost effectively. And Kern and I have been talking about some ways to do that. So stay tuned for that. I started driving Amazon Flex because I needed some extra cash and it fits my schedule. I don't hate it. Gas is expensive right now, so I'm not making as much as maybe I will in a couple months when it comes back down. But yeah, it's cool. And I'm going to get a bar gig. I've talked to 2 so far, and I've got people to talk to that are offering me slots. So I'm going to bartend here pretty soon, and that's going to be cool too. So I got things heading in the right direction. All of this while still working for Curran, still working at the event center with my friend Karina, who made me this beautiful box. I'm not going to open it because I'm klutzy and I busted the top off, but it's gorgeous and just amazing. It was very nice of her. She made that for me for my birthday. Her and Scott gave it to me at my birthday party. They were one of the many people who attended that night. And tonight on The Reckoning, this episode is just kind of, I'm going to talk about my life in general, my past. Not what happened the year before I got arrested. Not what's happened almost a year and a half. 500 days next week, sober, and without chaos in my life. Not one argument in almost 500 days. Not one drink, not one line, not one anything. A whole lot of self healing, a whole lot of digging into myself, a whole lot of learning who the real me is. And I'm still figuring it out. I'm not always comfortable in this new skin of mine. I still have moments of paranoia that I think people hate me and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure there are some people that hate me and they can fuck off. But I figure this way. I've talked about it before. We are not the worst night of our life. If you believe that I did something, and I didn't, but if you believe that I did something, I understand. You've been told that. It looks like I did. So if that's what you believe, and that's the one time anybody can ever say anything like that about me, and if you believe that, and then you see the changes I've made, the changes I chose to make, all these changes were in place well before I went in front of any kind of judge. These were me saying I need to do this. So I made these changes. Finally, after 60 years on this earth, I finally decided, it's time to be the best version of myself that I can be. I've been struggling a little bit lately, but just mentally, and not with any of that shit. That shit's over. It's out of my life. The divorce is final. Never going to talk to that person again. Never going to see that person. If we see each other, we'll just walk right past each other like we did the day we got divorced. I don't have time for people like that. I don't have time for that. Something I learned is she chose everything that happened. She chose. I'm not going to get into it today. Anyhow, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's gone on in the past of my life. And, it's funny because my first experience with drinking wasn't even by my choice. And my parents used to tell this story that I learned to walking between my father at one end of the couch and this guy we called Uncle Pete on the other end of the couch. Now, how much of this is true? I don't know. My dad swears it was true. My mother was not there, so don't hold her accountable. My father, you can't blame anymore because he's not around. But my mother wasn't there. But allegedly, they sat at the end of the bar drinking Budweiser. And that was before my dad got his green 6-pack of Budweiser and he quit drinking Budweiser and became a Miller guy. But he was drinking Miller or Budweiser, and they were sitting at the end of the couches and they were holding bottle caps with beer in them. And I would drink it at my dad and then walk the couch to Uncle Pete. And then he would give me one and I would walk back. And allegedly, that's how I learned to walk at 9 months old. I was walking and talking at 9 months old and apparently drinking. And I got drunk and passed out. My father said I went to sleep, but then I slept for like 36 hours. And, Mom came home. What did you guys do? Oh, nothing. It was just for fun. So yeah, that's my first experience with drinking. I don't even remember it. It's also my first experience walking. I don't remember that either. I don't know. Allegedly, I picked up a girl in the bar that night. Just kidding. The first time, though, that I chose to drink was in 7th grade. And it was before school. We hung out at Ross Park. I was going to Roberts Junior High. And all the cool kids, burnouts, and all that kind of stuff hung across the street. And I was over there with some of my friends, and somebody had a 6-pack. And each of us got 2 beers, and we chugged them. And I went to school. They were warm, and it was gross. And none of my friends felt good after drinking them. I guess I held it a little bit longer. I made it into music class. And then I threw up. Mom had to come get me. I don't believe that anybody knew until maybe right now. I don't know if I ever told Mom that story. But, yeah, that was my first experience choosing to drink. And I didn't like beer, of course, after that for a while. Until we came across 7 Little Kings, 7-ounce bottles. You know, the little ones. That was when I was hanging out with Keith and with DJ and all those guys. And, you know, we had been smoking weed because it was easier to catch a buzz with than beer. But, you know, in 9th grade, we found Little Kings, and we could drink them real fast because it was only little 7-ounce. They were easier to chug, and they stayed cold. For me, I didn't like the taste, so staying cold made it go quicker. I figured out if I drink 3 of those, I get a buzz. Boom, now I can drink whatever after that. Mad Dog 2020, whatever we could get our hands on. And I got that feeling of being more relaxed, a little bit more social. I always thought, for the most part, I still think this, that I was a happy drunk. Yes, I got sarcastic sometimes when I drank. And yes, I could be judgmental. And yes, the people I hung out with are not the greatest crowd in the world. And we said things we shouldn't say and did things we shouldn't do and all that kind of stuff. But I was never one of the guys that wanted to go out drinking and getting into fights. Now, I'm not saying I didn't get into fights, because I did. But I wasn't out looking to get into a fight or anything like that. When I drank, I wanted to laugh. I wanted to chase girls, listen to music. When I was younger, race my car. Stuff like that. All the stuff that back then, they don't do it as much now, but back then, teenagers lived like that. We'd get in our car on Saturday. We'd pile all our change together. We'd go get enough gas for the night. We'd try and get a case of Little Kings, a king case. Fill it with ice, put it in the middle of the console, and go driving around. Go looking for girls. Go hanging out. Now, some guys would go and look for fights. I wasn't necessarily into that. I got into them, but wasn't necessarily my choice. I've always felt that I was a happy drunk. Yeah, I can be a dick, but I was having fun then. I'm a smart ass. I can be argumentative, but I never was trying to be mean to anybody, and definitely never trying to be better. But I was loud. You know, and in high school, it was normal. Like I said, every weekend, Friday, Saturday, that's what we did. We got in the Mongoose, my old green 72 Grand Prix. Or we got into DJ's Cutlass. Or if we were desperate, we got into Keith's Dart. Whatever we had, we got into it. We put our money together. We got a king case, and we went looking for women. And that's how we lived. You know, and it was just a part of our lives. We didn't give it a second thought. You know, and then I joined the Marine Corps, and that's where it kind of changed, because it wasn't just weekends anymore. It became a daily routine. It became part of my culture, part of my life. First, it never felt like a problem. It just felt like I was trying to belong. Like I was bonding with my fellow Marines. Like, this is just what we do. And then warning signs started hitting, but they didn't register. Things started to happen. I got a DUI on base. I got put in situations I shouldn't have been in. Moments that should have been red flags and now would be a red flag. I was around things that got out of control. There was a fight in the barracks in Panama that I wasn't involved in, but I didn't stop it. And, it got violent and it was bad. And I got in trouble for that, but not because I did anything wrong. It's because I didn't do anything. And you know why? Because I was drunk. And I've established that when I'm drunk, I let boundaries go. And these are the things that now, looking back, I can see that. And I want you guys to remember, this is not me bragging. This is telling the progression. Okay? I'm not trying to give you here's my drinking card. Look at this, my baseball card. Look at the back. Here's my stats. It's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm telling you things that when I look back now, I realize were boundaries and were red flags and were warnings. And so some of these fights and bad decisions in the Marines, moments if I had been clear-headed, I could have stepped in, but I wasn't. Moments that if I had been clear-headed, I could have avoided, but I didn't. I just thought it was part of the game. I just thought everybody around me is doing it, and everybody around me is doing it every day. I think I've talked about this before. There was like one guy that I remember in our platoon that was not a drinker. Now, not everybody was every night drinker. And I don't know that I was an every night drinker, but like always, when I drank until it was time to go to bed or go to jail. 10 years ago, I would have told that and I would have laughed and, I would have told you that I'd been arrested in 10 different states, arrested or detained in 10 different states and 4 different countries and, all that kind of stuff, and said it like it was some kind of badge of honor or some kind of medal I had won in the Marine Corps. And now when I say that out loud, it makes my stomach turn just a lot, not just a little, a lot. It makes me feel guilty. It makes me wonder, what the fuck was I thinking? And then one time I was home on leave and I was heading for Hawaii. Like the dream duty station in the Marine Corps is on Hawaii, the island of Hawaii. It's a beautiful base in a beautiful island. And I was going there for the last 2 years of my Marine Corps, whether I enlisted again or not. My initial enlistment was 2 years left, and I was going to be in Hawaii for that. And I came home on leave, and I had a car. It was a '77 Camaro, and it was pretty cool looking. It was pretty cool. It wasn't. It looked like a hot rod, but it wasn't really a hot rod. I mean, it had a fast motor, but it wasn't. My Mongoose, my Grand Prix was faster when I had it, but it looked like it was pretty fast. And we were out driving one night. I was supposed to take it, drop it off to have it shipped to Hawaii, but I knew that was probably never going to happen. It was going to sit in my parents' driveway until I got home. I wasn't going to be able to take it to Hawaii with me. And we were out drinking, me and some buddies, and I'm not going to name everybody's name and stuff like that, but they were all good friends. And we're driving home, and I had drank too much. That we'd all drank too much, and I got talked into going a different way than I'd ever gone before home. And I was driving real fast, and I hit some railroad tracks, and I got airborne. And when I landed, we ran into another car, and the driver of that car was killed. And my friend was put in the hospital, and he dealt with a lot of physical issues for a while. And it was my fault, and I pled guilty. And I went to jail for 4 years in prison. I got discharged from the Marines while I was in there. It wasn't a general discharge. It wasn't honorable. but it wasn't dishonorable. It was just a general discharge. Contrary to what some people believe. It wasn't a good discharge, but it was just a general discharge. And it was a sad way to end what had been a great, in my mind, a great Marine Corps career. I had done some cool things. I haven't really talked about this a lot, but when I was in the Marines, I was a radio communicator. I got put in charge of this AM radio, and it had one side of it was two vans, and one side of the van, and by van, it's like a big storage container in the back of a 5-ton truck. And one side was radio and one side was teletype. And this was before digital and all that kind of stuff. And you would type a message, and it would go through an umbilical cord and transfer it into radio data, and then radio broadcast it over AM radio. And in theory, it could go entirely around the world, and you could receive your own message back and print it in the other van. But the idea was we could send it from North Carolina, where I was stationed, up to Greenland. We could send it over to the West Coast in California, to different Marine Corps bases out there. You could send it anywhere. You could send it to ships at sea. They could have the van on a ship, and you could send it to them. That was the idea. It had never worked. Nobody had ever gotten it to work. And so when I was in school, I did really good in my first radio operators course, and they asked me if I would take this other one. And I said, sure, I'll take it. And I took it and got trained on this machine. And then I went out into the field and I worked on it. And when I got there, I was all excited to use it. And the first thing the gunny told me was, well, we have that because we have to, but it's never worked. We can connect radio, but we've never been able to do teletype. And I remember that the instructor that I had at 29 Palms when I went to school there, he did not like me. He didn't like me because I beat his scores on some tests. And he didn't like me because he was a know-it-all. And I knew I was as smart as him. He didn't like me. Whatever the reasoning, he didn't like me. And he came to Second Force Service Support Group, which is where I was at, 8th Battalion, for radio operating. And I was in charge at the time. I was a corporal, and I was in charge of the van. And he came in, and he was all, I'm taking over, and he's a staff sergeant. He's what we call a shipbird staff sergeant. He'd been in 20 years and was going to get booted out soon because he never made gunnery sergeant. And so he just had a serious attitude about everybody. It wasn't just me that he hated. He didn't like anybody. So he came into this platoon that I was in, and he immediately, started taking over everything. And it's the military, so you give up. He's there. It's his gig now. I'll do what he says. And so we went to Norway. And I'm way off track here, but I'm in the middle of the story, so I'm going to finish it. And we went to Norway, and in Norway, it was a big operation. What was it called? Operation something Shield. I don't remember. And we went to Norway a couple times, and I had read this magazine on AM radio antennas. I don't remember where I was, but I think it was at the platoon. I think it came in and nobody ever read them. And I was bored one day and I read through it, and it told you how to make an antenna for this specific situation for the vans that we were in charge of. And so as soon as we set up the vans, he had a van and I had a van. And the goal was to set the vans up to do radio communications between the two vans, and then to try and go to Greenland and then to North Carolina, and then all the way over to California, and from Norway. So you would connect radio wise. You'd say, this is whatever your call signs are. Can you hear me? And they would say, yes, no, whatever. I mean, they don't say no if they don't hear you, but, they say yes, they could hear you. And then you would try and upload a teletype and send it and see if they could receive it. And then you would go to the next station. So I got there and I had a good team. And the guys on my squad didn't like the staff sergeant either, and he didn't like them. He didn't like anybody. He didn't like the guys on his own platoon. And so I told the guys, hey, I've got this antenna. It's a little bit extra work. Do you guys want to try it? Yes. And if I remember correctly, it was a series of antenna wire in a circle, and it was a certain size. I don't remember the size. I could probably walk it off, but it was probably 5 steps. I don't know. And then every 12 inches, they had one that hung down. So you wrapped some down, you made like a U, like that. And it hung off of the loop. I don't have anything like this is the loop. And then off of it, every little step around here, you would make this kind of thing. That's not a great example, but I wasn't prepared for this. And so you did this all the way around it, and then you hung it on, we had some poles, and you hung it on some poles out there. And the idea is that you create this big loop. And in theory, you're creating a dish, kind of. And this was when radio was just getting into like UHF and microwaves, and it was before satellites were taken off. There were satellites, but not many people had them in their units, and not many of us were trained on it. I got trained on it, but I never really got to work on one. So anyhow, I created this, and the staff sergeant just kept making fun of us. What the fuck are you doing? Grumpy. What the fuck are you doing? That's not the way you're supposed to do it. That's not the antenna that comes with it. And I said, we built that antenna. It's over there. It's hooked up. We're trying this too. See what works. So we were able to get connection with, within the two units. But that was like 300 feet. I mean, yards. That wasn't very far away. And within an hour, our van had connection to Greenland and sent a teletype. And then we had to North Carolina and sent a teletype. And then California. The other van never made any connection with anybody outside of us. And that turns out because our antenna was so good. And so I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. I knew that it didn't work very often, but I don't know that I knew at the time that it had never one time ever worked until the commanding general of this operation that we are on walks into my van. That doesn't happen. Like even colonels and lieutenant colonels don't come walking into a radio van. They don't give a fuck. And I turn around and he's standing there, and snap to attention, salute, do whatever. We're in the field, so you don't salute. But, you snap to attention, you talk to the guy. He's commanding general. And he's like, who's in charge over here? And the guys are like, Corporal Z. And he came over and started talking to me. What did you do? And I said, well, what, sir, I found this antenna idea in a magazine, and I read about it and I researched it, and I hadn't built one, but I knew that we had the equipment to build it. And so the guys and I decided to take a chance and just see if it worked. We tried the regular one. It doesn't work very good. So we tried this one. And he says, you realize this is the first time that this radio and teletype have ever worked. And I said, well, I know it doesn't work very often. He goes, no, son, it's never worked. Do you know how good this is going to make me look? And I said, well, that's awesome. He goes, do you know how good that's going to make you look? I'm like, well, we didn't do it for that. We're trying something, to see, for fun. We were just trying it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a long story to tell you that I was a good Marine. I was an excellent radio operator. I was at the forefront of technology with all that stuff. And I fucked it all up by having too many beers and staying too late and not listening to myself and listening to somebody else talk me into going another way. And now that's my fault. It's not that person's fault. It's not what I'm saying. But my boundaries got broke that night because I wanted to go a different way. What I really wanted to do was not go anywhere. But we did. And, changed my life. My mom likes to say that I've never let myself heal from that, and that I've never forgiven myself for that. And there is a lot of truth to that. I have always felt that every time something good starts happening in my life, I'm going to lose it because of that night and of killing that gentleman and putting my buddy in the hospital. Even though I paid my debt to society, I didn't argue. I pled guilty, first trial, all that kind of stuff. That time I pled guilty because I did it and I didn't want to bring everybody else down. Big difference than what happened in October. In October, I wanted to get on with my life and get away from that person that had ruined my life and get back to my family. When I did this, it was because I felt bad because I put my family and friends through that. And because I had done it. And so, yeah, I did 4 years in jail. And, you think, oh, well, that means you were sober for 4 years. Well, no, it doesn't. We were drinking in there. We were making hooch. We were, people would drop off booze on the farm. We worked on a farm. They'd drop booze off. My father thought he was a gangster. Gangsta. He thought he was a badass. And he dropped booze off on the farm one time. And he's talked about that until the day that he died. He talked about that. He always thought it was the coolest thing ever. But was it? I mean, it was cool that he did it. And it was funny. And, it was cool. And then I got out of jail and I was sober until I got off parole. And then the second I got off parole, I started drinking again. And trouble started following me again. And my life never kind of really caught up. I was showing up work hungover on a regular basis until I just drank hangovers away. I floated through jobs. I floated through houses. I floated through relationships. I got married. I drank that away. Then I tried to save the marriage. Colton's mom, I tried to save that marriage by getting sober. And all it did was make me an angry, dry drunk. I wasn't fixing the problems that I'm fixing now. I didn't meditate. I didn't pray. I didn't believe in God. I didn't want to get healthy. I just wanted to be sober so that I could save my marriage. But what it did was ruined it even more. And then there's been more DUIs since then. And there's been other things that I should have known stuff was happening. But what did I do? I said, well, you know what? I won't go out as much. I'll drink at home more. Look how that worked out for me, right? Arrested in my own fucking home. Just because I wanted to have a good time and drink during the day. And somebody didn't like that I was doing that. I mean, in the end, that's what started the whole thing. And I promise I'll get into all that. but there's stuff happening and I can't talk about it yet. I could be like her and go post it all over social media exactly what I think happened, which is the exact opposite of her story. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that until the next phase of trials are over. We're just waiting to find out when that's going to happen. And if you don't know anything about that and you want to find out, you can message me and I'll tell you privately. Drinking has set me back at every stage of my life. If drinking didn't set me back, the ramifications of the things that I did when I drank have set me back. Me killing someone has haunted my memory, haunted my mind. And if that didn't stop me, if that moment wasn't enough for me to stop, I should have known then I had a problem. I drank in jail. I drank throughout all my marriages, throughout every relationship I've ever been in. I've done stupid shit. I got lucky. I got breaks. I've got other DUIs. And still I fucking drank. I adjusted. I said, I'll drink at home. I won't drink as much. I won't drink every day. But the thing is, when I drank a lot. And it always led somewhere bad. Even if I wasn't a violent, angry person, I was drawn into arguments, into problems, forced into situations that didn't need to happen, including and especially the night of my arrest. Why didn't I think I had a problem? The truth is, I think I always knew, but I justified it. I don't drink like that guy. I don't drink every day. I'm not a drunk. When the reality is, being a drunk never made anything better. Even if it helped for a little while, it never made anything better. It mostly made it worse. And the lie I told myself was simple. I don't have a problem. And because I believe that, I let things slide. Boundaries in my marriage, boundaries in my life, things I should have stood up for. Myself, especially. Things I should have walked away from the first time they showed their ugly fucking face. Situations that were done to me right over there that I should have walked away immediately because I was a drunk. I said, that's not what she meant. That's not how she meant that. She's still a good girl. I still love her. It doesn't matter if she slammed me into the wall or pulled a knife on me. None of that matters. What matters is she'll be there tomorrow and it'll be fine. I made excuses for myself, for her, for everything. And yeah, the people around me were doing the same things. So it felt normal. But it wasn't. Not at the level that I was taking it. They weren't adding the cocaine. They weren't staying up all night with their wives, drinking and doing all the stuff that we were doing. All the drugs that her and I were doing. And don't let her tell you that she wasn't. That person was right at my side the entire time, wanting to be right next to me, no matter what I was doing. I'm mad if they weren't involved. I didn't think I had a problem because my life still looked like it was working. I still got up. I went to work every day. Drunk, high from the night before. I never drank at work or did anything at work like that. But, you know how you feel in the morning. I just dealt with it. That's what you did. That was the culture that I'd created for myself as a result of my high school, my Marines, my post-prison life. This culture accepted and made it okay to be hammered all the time. Made it okay to ignore things that you shouldn't ignore. Made it okay to act ways that you shouldn't act. made it okay to allow people you shouldn't have in your life to remain in your life way past their expiration date. Lies and cocaine and alcohol and insecure, jealous, awkward people are not a great mixture. And I fell for all of it. And I led myself into it with those 2 beers I had in 7th grade. That's what started it all. It all goes back to that. The first day that I drank, I broke boundaries. Shouldn't have drank before school. Shouldn't have chugged 2 beers, walked into school. I think it was not just chugging beers. I think we did speed. I think that's what it was too. We did 2 beers and Black Beauties. You know, those little caffeine pills that back when I was a kid, you thought was like cocaine in a pill or something, but it was just caffeine. The first time that I drank, boundaries broken, destroyed, ignored. So many times, boundaries. I had to set some boundaries in the last week with some people. And it's never easy for me still. But I'm very cognizant of it now. And I talk to my therapist. Right now I'm seeing somebody named Eliza. I'm not seeing Andy because my insurance is different or non-existent. I'm seeing a woman, Eliza, who is amazing, awesome. And Sydney, who is fantastic as well. She is my anger management. I was court-appointed anger management. And first thing she said was, "Why are you here?" Well, let's make the best of it. And we have. And it's been good. Now look, I got off track with the story about the Marine Corps and the radio, but that's just something I'm proud of. I got a commanding general's certificate of achievement for that, by the way, which is one step away from a commanding general's commendation medal. It was pretty cool. I was proud of being a Marine. I was a good Marine. I took pride in my uniform. It was pressed square. I was squared away every day. My cover was perfect. My hair was a little iffy here and there. I got some pictures with my hair dyed blonde and different things like that. But in a uniform, I looked amazing. I acted the way that I was supposed to act. And part of how I was supposed to act was to go drinking with the guys after work, including some of the sergeants and some of the, other people. We got into a fight in Panama, and the master gunnery sergeant, the top of the top enlisted men, he'd been in 40 years, got right in there and got into a fight with us on our side against some Air Force guys. He didn't like that. But I let boundaries go in the Marines. I let boundaries go in high school. I didn't like beer. What did I do? Instead of not drinking beer, I learned how to drink it faster so that I could get the effect without having to deal with the taste. Then eventually I learned to love the taste to where shots were the only thing I really wanted. None of that. I changed everything in order to be a better drinker. And I never changed anything in order to be a better person. And that's what I've done this past year. I've worked on that, being a better person. So if you're one of those people that judge me on what happened and you don't know for real what happened that night, and I understand why you don't because you haven't heard my side. If you judge me for that, I understand that, but please judge me for what's happened since then. My life's different. 500 days sober next week. Therapy to study myself, to learn myself, to heal myself. Spirituality awakening. Like a true awakening. True belief now. I'm never going to be somebody that is thumping the Bible and telling you you have to do this and you have to do that. But I will always talk about how it's helped me in the past 16 months. In the past 500 days, there hasn't been a day that I haven't prayed at least 5 times. It's just the way it is. And I can't imagine going in there and going to bed tonight and not praying. I do enjoy it. You know, all the other changes that I've made, the 40 pounds I lost, the weight training that I do, the bike that I ride, the walking that Edie and I do every day. These are things that when I don't do them, and there have been times lately that I have failed on these, I get upset. Chad probably thinks I'm retarded, man. Because one day I'll be like, oh, this was great, blah, blah, blah. It's almost manic. And then the next day I'll be mad. I didn't lift. I didn't meditate. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. The only thing I did was pray today. There you go. You kept one of your 5 S's. Tomorrow, let's fix that. Let's add this in and let's add that in. And it gets me back on track. And it's easy to get back on track. The 5 S's saved my life. And if you don't know the 5 S's, your first time listening to this, thank you for listening, first off. Secondly, the 5 S's, I'm going to put them right here. You ready? The first one, spirituality. You got to find God or your version of God or your version of a higher power. So they teach you in AA, and they teach you that because it's true. Secondly, you got to have self-care. Meditation is huge, but it's not just meditation. Self-care can mean you're learning how to take better physical care of yourself, how to take better mental care of yourself. Hell, how to brush your teeth better if you've been doing drugs and stuff and you haven't been doing that. Any kind of self-care where you're doing things to make yourself better and feel better. Self-care. 3, strength and training. Go find some way to work out, whether it's 10 push-ups on your knees to start, whether it's ride a bike for 5 minutes to start, whether it's walk your dog around the block. Get moving. A movement. It's vital. When you're feeling stressed and you're freaking out, you meditate, you pray, and you go for a workout, whatever that workout is. Number 4, for me, it's songwriting. But the main thing about this is it's creativity. Find a creative outlet that you enjoy. I've said it before, it could be pottery, it could be artwork, it could be painting, it could be writing poetry, just writing in your journal. Do it. And the 5th one is something new this year to me. And that's because in AA, I was talking to somebody and they were telling me that if you isolate in your recovery, you will fail. You can't just make your recovery about yourself. You have to start that way. You have to only worry about yourself and change your people, places, and things. You have to get yourself together. Now I've got myself together. So what am I going to do? I'm going to offer service. And service is trying to help people. I didn't realize it, but starting this podcast was a way of me offering service to people. I've talked to and listened to a lot of people who have found me through the podcast. I've gone on other podcasts. I'm out at a band or seen a band or playing a show, and people come up and talk to me about recovery and sobriety and how much they love, what I've done, and that I'm not afraid to talk about it in public. Service. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm going to be working with some local charities and stuff. I want to start taking Nelly and going to food banks and stuff like that and helping, see what I can do. So I have some plans for that I'm going to step up. Put those 5 pillars together. Tighten them. Work one thing on each pillar every day. Say a prayer. Meditate for 5 minutes. 10 push-ups. Write a note in your journal. And open the door for somebody who needs the door open. You've just covered all 5 of those. And this is something that I have struggled with, but that ChatGPT actually told me, you're wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You managed all 5 of your S's today. You just didn't do them the way you want to do them. And Curran tells me the same thing. We talk about it, and I'll say, man, I really fucked up this week, blah, blah, blah. And he'll say, how? And then we'll talk about it. He goes, well, you did this, this, and this. That's 5 things. You get those 5 things together and you tighten them up and it becomes strong. And it holds up the house of sobriety. And remember, when you recover, if you're doing it here, we recover loud. Louder than our demons. All right, this week on Guitar Tales, brought to you by Detained Records, Voices of the Underground. This week I want to talk about a singer that I respect, Jeff Angell. He was in Walking Papers, The Missionary Position, Post-Stardom Depression, Static Land. What stands out to me isn't just his tone. It's his honesty. There's no pretending in his voice or his lyrics. They feel lived in. And for me, that first Walking Papers record means something more. I found it because Duff McKagan was in it. And it's something I've shared with my daughter. We listened to it together the first time. We talked about it. We connected through that album. And that's what real music does. It builds something. It brings people together. There's a song on that record, Already Dead, that always stands out to me. Every time I hear it, it hits me right here. Every time my daughter hears it, it hits her there too. It's heavy, but not loud. It's reflective and it's honest. And that's what I totally dig. Not just as a listener, but as someone trying to write better songs and live a better life. This guy's lived a fucked up life because his lyrics are fucked up. However, they're honest, they're deep, they mean something. And as I enter this new part of my life, this new stage of my songwriting, that's something I'm drawn to. And I hear it when my daughter talks about this stuff. She pulls out songs off of that album that most 8-year-olds wouldn't get. And it's because his lyrics are honest and open, and anyone can listen to them and pull out what they feel. When you write a good song, it doesn't have to explain everything in wide open terms. You want to leave a little mystery there. And that's something I'm trying to learn and trying to include more. And Jeff Angell does that on every one of his songs. His voice is distinctive, his songwriting is distinctive, and the music he puts to it is distinctive. If you haven't listened to something by Jeff Angell, go listen to Walking Papers. The first 2 albums have Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses playing bass on them. They're awesome. And the newer album they have, there's the 3rd one. My daughter and I are finally getting into that, and it's fantastic. So go check out Walking Papers. Oh, man. All right, I'm going to try this one more time, and I think I'll get it right. I'm laughing at myself because I'm so close. But I just learned this song in the last half hour, and I've screwed it up every time I've played it, but I think I'm getting past the tricky parts. I'm just going to play the 2 verses, 2 choruses off this song. I'm not going to do like all the solos and all that kind of stuff. I never do that. But this song is Jeff Angell and the Walking Papers' first single, Already Dead. Duff McKagan played on this. It's the reason that I found them. I read his book and he talked about playing with them. And it's one of those things where you're guided to somebody. And I have fallen in love with Jeff Angell. I like all of his bands, Static Land, especially Walking Papers. My daughter loves Walking Papers. We listen to him all the time. And it's very special for the two of us. And she took a line from it one time, "The stars will burn out tonight," and she wrote her own song. It was really cool and cute and fun when she was about 4 or 5 years old. I really enjoyed it. So I finally got her to listen to albums 2 and 3 by that band. And now she recognizes his voice. And the other day I played something from Static Land and she heard it and went, "Hey, Daddy, is that Jeff Angell?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." You know, it was pretty cool. But like I said, I just learned this song. I have realized while learning it and paying attention to the lyrics again, how much this song is about me or impacts me or impacted me, or there's a lot of meaning in this song for me. And I really like it. This song is called Already Dead and it's Walking Papers. With friends like these, who needs enemies? It just so happens our adventures are over. Tonight the stars are going out. It's too late to cooperate. She's seen it coming. I burned all my bridges, but I'm not looking back. And I'm already dead. I swear I didn't know it. I know what I said. I swear I didn't mean it. And I'm a lot like you. Tonight the stars will burn out. I'm a casualty of who I used to be, without direction. Can't stand my reflection, 'cause I don't like what I see. Just like you, I'm only passing through, coming and going, but never quite knowing what are you trying to prove. And I'm already dead, I just don't know it. I know what I said, I swear I didn't mean it. And I'm a lot like you. Tonight the stars are burning, and I'm already dead. I just don't know it. And I know what I said, I swear I didn't mean it. And I'm a lot like you. Tonight the stars are burning. One note off at the end. But that's I'm Already Dead. It's fun. It's fun to try. I can't wait to play that for Nellie next time she comes over. She's going to love it. She's going to love hearing that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And please go check out Walking Papers. That's the whole point of doing stuff like this, is so you guys will go check out some music that's impacted me through my sobriety, before my sobriety, every day. This song is a song that I've listened to probably 500 times with my daughter. It means something to me. Hopefully it'll mean something to you. Thank you. This week on Field Notes, I want to talk about two things: songwriting and self-care. Songwriting is how I process things now. Not avoid them, not numb them, not run from them. Process them. Because for a long time, I didn't process anything. I reacted, I buried it, or I drank it away. Now, I slow it down. I sit with it, and I turn it into something real. And self-care, real self-care, isn't about comfort. It's honesty. It's being able to look at your life and say, this isn't working. This relationship isn't working. This life isn't working. Not later, not when it falls apart like I did. Now. Because those two things, awareness and expression, they create space. And in that space, that's where better decisions happen. In this episode, I've been talking about the version of me that didn't think I had a problem yet, that ignored everything. The version that ignored the signs, justified the behavior, kept pushing forward, ignored boundaries and people who were invading those boundaries, like nothing was wrong. Next week, I want to take that a step further. I want to talk about Samson, a man who had strength but couldn't control himself. A man who knew his weakness and still walked straight into it. And what happens when you ignore the very thing that's going to take you down? Because that story isn't just history, it's a warning. And if I'm being honest, it hits closer to home than I ever realized. There's something dangerous about being in the middle, not at the bottom, not completely broken, just functioning. Because that's where the lie lives. You can still show up, still go to work, still have relationships no matter how fucked up they are. You still tell yourself, I got this under control. I don't have a problem. I'm good to go. And I lived there for a long time, convincing myself that I was different, that I wasn't like the people with real problems. Ignoring the arrests, the DUIs, all the bad decisions I was making. I was just getting better at explaining those bad decisions. And that is the trap. We don't see it clearly because our life hasn't completely collapsed yet. But looking back now, there were moments I should have stopped. Moments I knew something wasn't right. But I didn't. Because I believed the lie. I'm not as bad as him. She's worse than I am. And if you're in that place right now, you don't have to wait. Don't wait like I did until you're in jail. You don't have to lose everything like I did. You can choose to see it now. Because I didn't. And it cost me more than it ever should have. Remember, here we recover loud, louder than our demons.
Hey, Unbroken. This is Vincent. Josie asked me to say thank you for listening to Louder Than My Demons. If this episode meant something to you, please feel free to hit subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and we'll see you next week. All right, here's Josie.
Next week on Louder Than My Demons, we go deeper. Episode 18, the story of Samson, strength, weakness, and what happens when you keep ignoring the thing that's eventually going to take you down. And coming soon, the first Demon Cuts episode of Season 2, a deep dive into Velvet Revolver's Contraband. The music, the chaos, the chemistry, and why that record still hits as hard as it does. Until then, keep fighting, keep building, and keep moving forward. We recover loud, louder than our demons.